and welcome to a deep dive on something super important, type 2 diabetes. And, I know a lot of you out there have reached out and said, hey, I'm really interested in learning more about what happens to those insulin-producing beta cells,
Yeah.
the ones in your pancreas. And specifically, I think people have been asking about the role of inflammation and oxidative stress.
Absolutely.
So get ready to have your minds blown because we are going deep today into a 2023 review article from the National Library of Medicine.
Yes.
And this review brings together a ton of research from both preclinical, so think lab experiments,
Right.
and clinical settings, meaning studies with actual humans.
Yeah.
So think of this as your crash course on beta cell dysfunction.
It's not just a crash course, it's a deep dive.
It's a deep dive.
And what's so fascinating is that this review really helps us understand how inflammation and oxidative stress are like two sides of the same coin.
Right.
They both contribute to beta cell damage.
They really do. Okay, so let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
Insulin resistance is a big deal in type 2 diabetes, but remind us how that impacts those hardworking beta cells.
Absolutely. So think of it this way. Your beta cells are like little factories churning out insulin,
Okay.
which acts as a key to let glucose into your cells for energy. But when you have insulin resistance, your cells become less responsive to insulin.
So the cells are kind of like,
It's like those cell doors are getting sticky.
yeah.
And the insulin key doesn't work as well.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So then the beta cells have to work extra hard,
Exactly.
pumping out more and more insulin.
Yes.
Just to kind of get the job done.
Exactly. And like any factory working overtime,
Right.
eventually those beta cells start to get exhausted and wear down, their insulin production declines.
Oh, no.
And that's a major step toward developing type 2 diabetes.
Got it.
It's a vicious cycle. And figure 1 from the review really illustrates this cascade effect beautifully.
Yeah, that really helps. I think that's really important for people to visualize what's going on. But here's something that I've always found super surprising. We think about inflammation. We think about a cut or an infection or something like that.
Right.
But inflammation plays a major role in this whole process.
That's right. And in type 2 diabetes, we're not talking about that acute inflammation like when you get a cut or an infection.
Right.
We're talking about chronic, low-grade inflammation, like a slow burn that constantly damages those beta cells.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And often obesity is kind of one of the main culprits
Exactly.
fueling this inflammatory fire.
Obesity triggers inflammation in fat tissue,
Okay.
leading to the release of these pro-inflammatory molecules. Think of them as tiny little troublemakers that travel to your pancreas and attack those beta cells directly.
So it's like a double whammy for these beta cells.
Yeah.
They're being overworked because of the insulin resistance,
Right.
and they're under attack from inflammation.
Exactly.
So the review talks about some specific biomarkers of inflammation that are linked to beta cell dysfunction.
Yeah. Can we break those down?
Definitely some of these might sound familiar. First up, we have C-reactive protein, or CRP.
Okay.
It's a general marker of inflammation that doctors often measure. And elevated CRP isn't just a red flag for type 2 diabetes. It's also linked to a higher risk of heart disease.
So it's like a 2-for-1 warning sign.
Exactly.
That's really scary. Wow. That really highlights how interconnected everything is.
It is.
One issue can kind of cascade into another.
For sure.
So what are some of the other key players in this whole inflammatory drama?
Well, there's fibrinogen, a protein involved in blood clotting.
Okay.
Elevated fibrinogen is also found in individuals with type 2 diabetes and may contribute to beta cell dysfunction. And then we have interleukins, specifically IL-6 and IL-1.
Wait, interleukins, those are like the signaling molecules, right?
You got
Like
it.
the messengers in the immune system.
They are messengers. But in type 2 diabetes, when levels of IL-6 and IL-1 are too high, they can disrupt the delicate balance in the pancreas, leading to potential beta cell damage. Oh, so it's like they're sending the wrong signals and leading to like friendly fire
Exactly.
in the pancreas.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it.
That's really helpful. And then there's TNF-EO, which sounds kind of intimidating.
TNF-E, or tumor necrosis factor alpha, is a potent inflammatory molecule. It's heavily implicated in both insulin resistance and beta cell death.
Oh, wow.
In fact, there was a landmark study back in 1993 by Hodemus Ligel et al. That clearly demonstrated a link between TNF-E and insulin resistance in rats.
So TNF-E is like the double agent causing trouble on multiple fronts.
Exactly.
It's amazing how these little molecules can have such a powerful impact.
They really do.
But the review also mentions that T cells,
Yes.
those key players in our immune system, can actually get involved in this beta cell drama as well.
They can.
How does that work?
So T cells come in different types with different roles, but in type 2 diabetes, certain T cells, particularly Th1 CD4 plus T cells and CD8 plus cytotoxic T cells, can become overactive. And instead of protecting the body, they can actually attack beta cells, mistaking them for enemies.
Wow, so it's like a case of mistaken identity. The
Exactly.
immune system is so powerful, but it can sometimes turn against us.
Absolutely.
The review actually mentions research using electron microscopy that showed these CD4 plus T cells getting stuck in the pancreas of diabetic mice.
It's incredible. And figure 2 in the review provides a striking visual representation of how these T cells and the inflammatory factors we just discussed contribute to beta cell dysfunction.
You can really see how the inflammation is like a siege on those core beta cells.
It is a siege.
It's really mind-blowing when you see it laid out like that.
Yeah.
But before we get too overwhelmed by, this inflammatory storm, I'm curious about what can be done to combat this. I know medications like metformin are often prescribed, so where does that fit into all of this?
That's a great question, and it's the perfect segue into our next topic. Medications can actually help address inflammation and protect beta cells. And as you mentioned, metformin is a key player in this arena.
It is.
Yeah. Metformin is often the first-line treatment for type 2 diabetes, and for good reason. It's been around for a long time. It's effective at lowering blood sugar, and it's generally safe for most people.
I've heard it called the workhorse of diabetes medications.
That's a great analogy, and what's really interesting is that metformin's benefits extend beyond just blood sugar control.
Okay.
The review we're looking at delved into multiple randomized controlled trials. Those are like the gold standard in medical research, and the results are pretty impressive.
So these trials look specifically at how metformin impacts inflammation.
They did, and what they found is that metformin, especially when combined with other diabetes medications, can actually improve beta cell function.
Oh, wow.
And it seems that a big part of how it does this is by reducing those inflammatory markers we talked about, like CRP and TNF.
So it's like metformin steps in and tells that inflammation to cool it,
Exactly.
giving those beta cells a chance to recover.
Exactly. It's like a bodyguard for your beta cells.
I like that.
The review even highlights some specific studies. For example, one study showed that patients taking metformin, along with rosiglitazone, had lower CRP levels and better beta cell function after a year of treatment. Another study found that combining metformin with vildagliptin led to weight loss, better blood sugar control, and improvements in beta cell function.
It sounds like metformin is a real team player,
It is.
working synergistically with these other medications. Now, the review also mentions a couple of other medications like glympyride and etanercept that have shown some promise in modulating inflammation.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about those?
Glympyride is another commonly prescribed diabetes medication, and studies suggest that it may help reduce levels of TNFO, that potent inflammatory molecule we talked about earlier.
Right.
Etanercept is a bit different. It's actually a TNF-I blocker, meaning it directly targets and neutralizes TNFA, and some studies have shown that etanercept can reduce CRP and IL-6 levels, leading to improved beta cell function.
So it's like etanercept is taking out the trash,
Exactly.
removing those inflammatory troublemakers from the scene.
It is, and Table 1 in the review provides a handy summary of these medications and their effects on inflammation.
Yeah.
It's worth checking out if you want to dive deeper into those specifics.
That's really helpful. It's fascinating how different medications can target different aspects of inflammation. Now we've talked about insulin resistance, inflammation, and medications, but there's another piece of this puzzle that I think is super important. Oxidative stress. Can you remind us what that is and how it affects those beta cells?
Absolutely. Oxidative stress is basically an imbalance between free radicals and antioxidants in the body. You can think of it like a seesaw on one side. You have free radicals, which are kind of like tiny but destructive little molecules. They're a natural byproduct of our metabolism. But when there are too many of them, they can start to damage cells.
And on the other side of the seesaw, we have antioxidants.
Exactly. Antioxidants are the good guys. They neutralize those free radicals, preventing them from causing too much damage. But when the seesaw ticks and there are more free radicals than antioxidants, that's when oxidative stress takes hold.
So it's like a constant battle between the forces of good and evil,
That's a great way to put it.
happening at a microscopic level.
And unfortunately, those beta cells are particularly vulnerable to oxidative stress. They naturally have low levels of antioxidants, which makes them more susceptible to damage from those free radicals.
It's like they're going into battle with less armor.
Exactly. And to make matters worse, chronically high blood sugar And high levels of fats in the blood, which are common in type 2 diabetes, can actually fuel the production of those harmful free radicals.
So it's like a double whammy. Not only do they have weaker defenses, but they're also facing a more intense attack
Right.
from those free radicals. No wonder they have a hard time keeping up.
It's a tough situation, for sure. And to add another layer of complexity, the review also mentions that levels of NRF2, a crucial molecule that helps cells fight oxidative stress, are lower in people with type 2 diabetes. It's like their backup system is malfunctioning.
So their defenses are weakened, and they're dealing with a more powerful enemy, those poor beta cells.
Yeah.
Figure 3 from the review does a great job of visually representing how inflammation and oxidative stress are intertwined in this whole process. It's pretty eye-opening.
It is, but there is some good news. Our bodies have a built-in defense system against those pesky free radicals, our very own team of antioxidant enzymes.
Okay, so tell us about these antioxidant heroes.
Okay.
Who are they and what do they do?
Well, one of the superstars is glutathione peroxidase, or GPX. It's a real workhorse neutralizing harmful lipid peroxides, which are particularly damaging to cells. Studies have shown that boosting GPX levels can actually protect beta cells in diabetic mice.
Go GPX. Who else is on our team?
We also have superoxide dismutase, or SOD. It's like a ninja warrior, specifically targeting and eliminating superoxide radicals, which are one of those common types of free radicals in the body.
SOD, you're the best. Are there any other key players on this antioxidant defense squad?
Absolutely. Thioredoxins are another important group of antioxidants. They help reduce oxidative damage by targeting oxidized proteins, which are basically proteins that have been damaged by free radicals. However, there's a bit of a twist here. A protein called TXNIP, which interacts with thioredoxins, can actually be harmful to beta cells when it's present in excess.
Wait, so it's like we have a double agent in our midst?
You could say that it just goes to show how complex and interconnected these systems are. And finally, we have catalase, or CCAT, which breaks down hydrogen peroxide into water. And hydrogen peroxide is a byproduct of many metabolic processes and can be quite damaging if it builds up.
So CTAT is like the cleanup crew, making sure things don't get too messy.
Precisely. And studies have shown that increasing CT levels can improve insulin secretion in type 2 diabetes, which is a big win for those struggling with blood sugar control.
It's amazing how our bodies have these intricate defense systems in place, even at the cellular level.
It really is remarkable. But while these antioxidant enzymes are doing their best, researchers are constantly exploring ways to give them a helping hand, so to speak.
Because who wouldn't want a superhero sidekick in this battle against oxidative stress? So what are some of the strategies being investigated to boost these natural defenses?
One promising avenue is developing therapies that directly increase the production or activity of these key antioxidant enzymes. Think of it like giving those enzymes a power-up.
That would be incredible. But as you mentioned earlier, this research is still ongoing.
Yes, it's a complex area, and developing safe and effective therapies takes time. But the progress being made is definitely encouraging. In the meantime, there's a lot we can do to support those antioxidant defenses through lifestyle choices.
Okay, let's talk about that. We focus a lot on medications, but what about the power of things like diet and exercise? Can those make a difference in protecting beta cells from oxidative stress?
Yeah, I'm always hearing about how important diet and exercise are for overall health.
Right.
But I'm really curious to know, specifically how they might help those beta cells.
Well, when it comes to diet, think of it as providing your body with the right tools to fight oxidative stress.
Okay.
A diet rich in antioxidants can help neutralize those harmful free radicals we've been talking about.
So loading up on colorful fruits and vegetables.
Exactly.
It's like giving our beta cells a shield.
Exactly. Those bright colors and fruits and veggies often come from powerful antioxidants.
Okay.
And it's not just about fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, and even things like green tea are packed with antioxidants as well.
So eating a rainbow of foods is not just a fun saying, it's a great strategy.
It is.
For supporting our beta cells.
Yes.
What about exercise?
Yeah.
How does getting our sweat on help? Regular physical activity has so many benefits, and one of them is improving insulin sensitivity. This means your cells become more responsive to insulin.
Right.
Taking some of the burden off those overworked beta cells.
Right. We talked about that vicious cycle earlier.
Exactly.
So exercise helps break that cycle by making the cells more receptive.
Right.
To insulin. Are there any other ways that exercise supports those beta cells?
There is some research suggesting that exercise might actually increase the activity of those antioxidant enzymes we discussed, like SOD and GPX.
Oh, wow.
It's like exercise is giving those enzymes a pep talk.
Okay.
Telling them to work even harder.
So it's a win-win. Exercise helps with insulin sensitivity.
It's
And MAND boosts our natural defenses. I'm starting to feel a lot more motivated
me too.
to get moving. We focused a lot on what's happening within the body, but I know before we were talking about maybe other factors impacting beta cells,
Right.
things like stress, sleep, environmental exposures. Is
Yeah.
there anything to that?
Absolutely. It's all connected. Think of it this way. Those beta cells are like delicate instruments.
Okay.
And anything that throws the body out of balance can impact their ability to function properly.
So even things that don't seem directly related to our pancreas
Yeah,
can have an indirect effect on those beta cells.
exactly. Take stress, for example. When we're chronically stressed, our bodies release a cascade of hormones that can increase inflammation throughout the body, including in the pancreas.
Hmm.
This can create a hostile environment for those beta cells, making them more susceptible to damage.
Wow, I never thought about stress that way. It's like a ripple effect throughout the body.
It is.
What about sleep? I know when I don't get enough sleep, I feel terrible.
Right.
How does that impact those beta cells?
Sleep is crucial for so many bodily functions, including hormone regulation and glucose metabolism.
Right.
When we're sleep deprived, it can disrupt those processes, leading to an impaired insulin sensitivity and potentially putting more stress on those beta cells.
So getting enough sleep isn't just about feeling rested. It's about giving our beta cells a chance to recharge as well.
Exactly.
And what about environmental factors?
Yeah.
Could things like pollution or exposure to toxins play a role?
That's an area that's still being investigated, but there's growing evidence suggesting that environmental exposures can contribute to the development of type 2 diabetes.
So those beta cells are facing threats from all sides. It can feel a bit overwhelming.
It's true that there are many factors that can influence beta cell health, both within our bodies and in our environment, but I think it's important to remember that we're not powerless in this situation.
Right, we've talked about medications, diet, exercise, stress management, sleep. It sounds like a holistic approach is key.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
knowledge is power. The more we understand about these complex mechanisms, the better equipped we are to make informed choices about our health.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. We've covered so much ground, from the intricate workings of beta cells to the interplay of inflammation, oxidative stress medications, lifestyle factors, and even environmental influences. I feel like I have a much deeper understanding of type 2 diabetes now.
I agree.
And to our listeners, we hope you feel empowered by this knowledge as well.
Yeah,
Remember, you have the power to be proactive in protecting your health.
absolutely.
Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and take good care of yourselves.